This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 162.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation, or SE family? I don't know. I kind of mix them up these days. How you doing, Mr. Kunungu?
I'm doing very well. It's been, we finally got our first taste of spring, summer up here in Ottawa. So I've been taking full advantage of that. It's been quite nice. How about you? How was your weekend?
I can tell because you're wearing a hat and a sweater. It must be spring in Ottawa. I'm doing well. We spent a lot of time outside with the kids. So getting them tired. Although yesterday I slipped playing soccer.
Oh, no.
I used to bounce up. Now I just bounce on the floor before getting up. So it's
I'd imagine you're still I'm sure you're relatively spry though for, I don't know, for someone your age and as busy as you are. And you're not even old though. What am I talking about? For what it's worth, I also am starting to feel the same things where I hurt my leg doing a little run, I don't know, last week or so. Wasn't even a hurt, just maybe overdid it. And it hasn't healed much at all yet. And like even going up the stairs is still a little bit of a pain here and there. So I'm starting to...
So some technical difficulties. I cut you off. I don't remember what you were saying, so we're not going to go back. Let's talk about our guest today, Michael Townsend. He's back. He was on the show back in show 87. So if you want to check him out, at that time he was a global director, but he had direct reports as SEs. He's since hired SE managers underneath him, and I wanted to talk to him about like how is that different than what it was before. So we had a great conversation with Michael.
Yeah, agreed. No, it was fascinating. I mean, a lot of cool little things about it for me. Like one of the things being him originally coming on shortly after my initial appearance on the show was really cool because it was a nice little reminder of just seeing somebody that, I don't know, I looked up to when I was first listening, just because, you know, everybody coming on the show is somebody that had so much knowledge. And so it was really cool to get reacquainted with him again. And yeah, no, the content that we went over was really interesting, especially around like people that are new into sales engineering or looking to move into it, in addition to those who are managers as well. I think we'll get a lot out of this show because he talks a lot about how people are successful in pre-sales nowadays due to some of the things that he has kind of implemented on the team that maybe they weren't naturally doing beforehand. And so I think that there's a lot to take out of the show, whether you're an SC contributor, like individual contributor, or otherwise leading or managing these teams so that they could be their best.
Yeah. And what I enjoyed about him is not something we talked about. I don't know if he wants me to say this, but he was nervous getting on the show. And he's been on like Vivian's podcasts, Vivian's meetups and that sort of thing, Consensus, PSC. He's been on many of podcasts. And it reminded me when I used to play basketball. And I used to play a lot of basketball, but before every game, I get nervous. And even I did the talk for Consensus, the demo fest. And man, like, was I nervous before that? So it's interesting. Right now, I don't get nervous anymore in front of these for the podcast because I'm not doing most of the talking. I don't have to show how smart I am, so it's worked out. But anyways, let's jump into the show with Michael. Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We were just talking that it's been like a year and a bit since you were last on the show. You were on show 87, not 187, like I mistaked earlier. I don't even know if that's the right sentence. For those who didn't listen to the first episode, shame on them. But could you do like a 20-second introduction to who you are and your career path and whatever you want to talk about?
20 seconds. That'll be tough. I'll see if I can talk fast. I already used up 5 seconds. But Michael Townsend, I'm the Senior Director of Global Presales here at Ignite. EGNYTE. Been with the company for coming up on 6 years. I was 20 years ago, I entered the professional scene as a customer of product, had no idea what I was doing. Then for the next 10 years, went through different variations of using that product, consulting on it, developing, administering, until I was recruited 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, to sell the product. And that was a big jump for me to go from customer to sales or pre-sales specifically. And then for the last 10 years, been with 3 different companies, Ignite being obviously the current one. And in that time with Ignite, about 2.5 years as an individual contributor, helping to grow the team and enable and obviously sell. And now for the last little over 3 years as the director.
Okay. So if I recall correctly, and by the way, if you guys want to, if you want to know Michael's full story, go back to show 87. But if I remember correctly, you went from like individual contributor, you were kind of being groomed to become the manager, and you just went straight to director.
Went to straight to senior director.
Senior director. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what the difference is.
Well, so did you have any managers? You didn't have any managers underneath you. No. So what's the difference?
So, and I'm pretty transparent and candid. So my team and everyone else already pretty much knows that for the first 2.5 years of me being a director, I was more acting like a manager than a director, doing the daily, managing a team of up to over a dozen people, direct reports, which everyone was saying, how can you do that? That's it's impossible. It's like, no, because I hire adults. It wasn't that hard, but it was taking a lot of that time of coaching and giving a lot of time to each individual. It didn't start at that many, maybe 4 or 5, whenever I took it over. And then I was doing a little bit of that interfacing to other teams, but we weren't really growing as fast as it needed a full-time director. Everything accelerated very quickly in the last 6 to 9 months, part of because of COVID, but actually it was just the course of business. The 2020 was a great year for business at Ignite. A lot of because of what we sell and enabling people to work remotely. But definitely the right time. It was last year I put in place team leads, and that quickly accelerated to needing managers, which started this year. So now I have a team of managers that have their own direct reports.
Okay. So, Benny, do you want me to steal your question, or do you want to ask it?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. Benny noted here, and I'm gonna ask it. He mentioned you transitioned from managing to leading, and we talk about like these terms and as buzzwords. But in your mind, what's the difference between like managing and leading and coaching?
I actually have 2 books back here. The Sales Engineer Manager's Handbook, John Kerr.
Yep.
I remember when he issued it, or even in somewhere in the book at the beginning, he was questioning whether to call it Sales Engineer Leaders Handbook or Managers. And managers makes it more prescriptive, but in reality, it is leadership. Managing is telling people what to do. Leading is pointing the way, and and finding a way to get people to follow. So the other book on the other side of me is Start with Why, and this will be at the very end. One of the rapid or not so rapid fire round. This is a book to really focus on leadership. Why do people follow? I'll stop there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Of manager and leader.
I once asked a question on LinkedIn, unrelated, about who I should get on the podcast. Was it you who said I should get Simon Sinek?
I don't think I did, but that's a great idea.
Oh, he refused. Sorry. He said no. I tried. I'll try and get it a few months. Okay, but yeah, that kind of answers the question, at least for me. How did you transition from an IC to a manager to a leader, and all that?
So I wasn't brought in solely to be an individual contributor. You alluded to that, being groomed, that kind of origin story of my time in 2015, getting hired. There was some stuff happening internally within the company that I knew a little bit about, and then they brought in someone to fix that. And then in the course of fixing it, they said, hey, we need someone who has done pre-sales to help those who are already successful be more successful within your organization. That was me, and I wasn't coming in as a manager, but it was definitely more as a experienced leader. I wasn't coming in to tell people what to do. I was just coming in to do the job and help advise and help coach, but alongside my peers. Because they knew the product, they knew what they were selling. Some of them been doing it for almost since the company started, and some of them, they're still here. And in the course of that, couple years, well, I'll pause there and say one of the things you do as a leader is define who your second in command is, and make sure people know who that is. So there's a lot of strategy to that, but I was pointed to as that second in command. And so whenever the boss is out, who kind of runs the show? And it's giving authority to someone who doesn't have any actual authority, but through trust. And you can only do that when you are trusted as a leader to actually hand off some of that trust. And I'm very thankful that my former boss, who's still with the company, really was respected and was really trusted from all the way at the top down to the individual contributors. So it made things a lot easier to kind of hand that, baton to me when the time came, when that leader was promoted to do more. And it was not an automatic, now he attempted to make it automatic of, all right, you're running the team. What title do you want? I'm like, I don't know. Manager. He's like, well, director of this or this. And so that was done in March, end of March of 18, we'll say. I can't do math. And it took some time because that was not the way things happened, as much as, the company's growing. HR came in and said, hey, we need to make sure, do we need to market this outside? And what's the qualification? So that's where, having a master's in systems engineering helped me. That was probably the first time, because I actually forgot that I had it, because what's the initials of systems engineering? SE. I really hope HR, well, they're long gone, doesn't listen to this podcast to say, hey, it has nothing to do with pre-sales, but it is, I think that's the thing that kind of notched me with the senior. I never actually asked to confirm, but that's the part of being part of a growing organization, a smaller growing into much bigger. We're more than double the size when I joined. Not just the team, but the whole company. We're rapidly growing, very, very quickly. Especially that's what triggered the last 6 to 9 month escalation. You can have any title. I have someone on my team that was a VP at a, I don't know, 20, 30 person company. What does that mean? A title is a title, but going back to that being a leader, it comes with respect. I mean, there's you've had podcasts about leadership and how to, gain that trust, and I do it through transparency and being candid. I do keep secrets, but there are certain things that I'm like, what's the political risk of actually telling people some of that, so that, inform early, inform often. So when that thing comes to pass, people aren't freaked out by it. So that's part of kind of how I just operate. It's not something I force myself to do, just who I am.
So I just wanted to clarify something. You mentioned that you don't manage people, you don't tell them what to do because they already know how to do it. If I understand correctly, you were kind of the first person with a pre-sales background on the team. So while you were there as a pre-sales individual contributor, did they hire more individual contributors who had pre-sales experience?
Yes, after me, yeah.
All right. Which is why you didn't have to handhold them. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and to the team's credit of who was here at the time and who is still here from that time, a lot of them grew up with the company. This was their first job at the company. Maybe not on the SE team. Maybe they were a sales rep, an SDR. Maybe they did time in professional services. They knew what they were doing, but they knew it from this being the only place they've done it. So getting that extra experience from outside of industry in a related field, not an exact one-for-one or apples to apples company.
Did you know? Sorry, Benny. Last question, and I'm hogging the mic. I know. Did you know that you're not supposed to manage? You're supposed to lead, and because the book wasn't out.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you figure out how to lead properly, and How did you figure out that you are actually leading properly?
I did some things right and I did some things wrong. One of the things I did wrong was trying to emulate how my boss led. And because I saw the result of it, I didn't know what went into the thought process. And so when I was trying to be a bit more firm, like the guy from the Bronx that guy is, it didn't come off in the same way. That I quickly corrected it. He corrected me on that, and it's like, just don't do that. And I learned very quickly. I'm very self-aware, and not that I can change a lot of stuff, but I am very self-aware. The things I did right was just emulate the things that I observed from the managers who really stood out as being positive. And what did they do that was positive? It's not micromanaging, coaching and informing and being transparent and candid, not being a friend, a buddy, but being someone that you can trust, you can go to, and trying not to have a knee-jerk reaction to something someone says to you and saying, I got to go fix that, or I got to go yell at someone, and kind of protecting my team to a certain extent, but also allowing challenges through. As I can't protect them from everything. And sometimes, I have to react to a challenge that came through and I wasn't aware of it, but letting them grow through that, but letting them do their job, pointing them in the direction that we need kind of all to move forward, but also giving them that flexibility to grow and create their own personal brand.
Fair. No, that's and that's probably a really good way to go about it as well. And just like having that trust in your team and knowing and giving them that agency to do that really just gives them, I guess, that feeling of, I don't know if authority per se, but that feeling just to want to do more because it's really their name on it. And
they're empowered. Yeah, empowered to do it. Yeah,
100%. I do want to ask a quick question. I guess for a couple of different reasons. One, I guess, being that me having been a sales engineer for a couple of years now, kind of forget what it was like to be brand new, or maybe a few years now, forget what it was like to be brand new. And all the while, like, there's probably some little things I'm doing now that could also be better, and maybe others listening as well. Of those new SEs that kind of got into that pre-sales role, that maybe lived in the organization and kind of like got into that role and now had to be that pre-sales professional, what were the types of things that they were doing that you kind of had to tweak to get them to be a little bit better than what they naturally would have been had they not had the guidance that you brought them?
Yeah, and that was something, Ramsey, when you said that about not micromanaging, not telling them how to do it. I do tell them a lot of, don't do this, do this. And so any of my team that listens, they're like, no, he's definitely very hands-on, to the point of, we use Gong, and I added I forget what we call it, the and counter, whatever that is that Gong has, filler word counter. It doesn't catch uhs and ums, but it catches, right. And the thing, because I have ADD, whether it's actually diagnosed or not, but I get highly distracted. And those are the things that distract me. So I really focus on them. So I try to get them to communicate better, and things of, I try not to be a know-it-all, but it's like, you guys you got to be the know-it-all. You have to know everything. And I forgot what the question is, because it was a quick question and not a quick answer.
No, it's okay. Well, actually, a long answer might actually be, is I think a good thing. So the question just has to do with, like, what were those things that you noticed of those new pre-sales professionals that you were able to kind of turn around to make them even better?
How did you?
I got distracted myself.
How did you turn them around?
It's we can't change everything. It's saying, making people aware of something. I want them to still stay themselves. There's a reason I hired them, and I don't want that to go away. But there's those who have been doing it a long time. I want to make sure you're not going to get complacent. Generally I wouldn't have hired you in the first place if it's perceived that you're going to be complacent. You got to be curious. You got to stay competent and up to speed, not just on our product, but everything around our product, everything in industry eventually, as you're continually growing in the space. So there's things where I'll invest in things like LinkedIn Learning for the whole department, and just say, this is something you can use to improve yourself. I'm not requiring any of it, but if there's something, if someone wants to go get a Security Plus training and then eventually certification, or learn about AutoCAD or Adobe product, or get soft skills like handling complex interactions. That's there for them to do it. Now, whether they take advantage of it, that's up to them. But I'm here to improve you while at Ignite and beyond, because at some point, none of us are going to be working where we are. That time is long gone. So how can I keep you content and actually proactive in your career development while here and under my purview?
Fair. That makes sense. That's an awesome. I think that's an awesome way to kind of develop your team beneath you, or just to develop the team that you have. Although it does kind of beg the question, or I don't know if it begs the question, but did you find that those people that moved into the role internally, that they didn't necessarily feel the need to, I guess, have that type of, expansive learning or have that type of perspective on things before? Just because I know that, like, here on the show, and I think in the various newsletters and whatnot that we do talk a lot about sales engineering being one of the most transferable roles to other places in an organization. Even just your path kind of shows that, and a lot of other people move into whether it be product marketing or into leadership roles or starting their own companies and stuff. So that kind of wider purview seems to be something that is very common or required, like you said, amongst sales engineers.
Those who moved into the role from outside, we gotta kind of put them through a boot camp to break them down and rebuild them into what we need them to be. There's an individual who just moved into the team from being an inside sales rep, and he just started this month, and he is military background. So whenever I said boot camp, I'm like, I know what your boot camp is. This is going to be a lot easier, but it's changing a bit of your character and your habits, so that you are, yes, you know a bit of the product, but you knew the product in the role that you're in, to just kind of inform and then get an SE on the call to help you out. Now you got to be that person. So there's a whole lot of there's a lot of character change to make sure that you are up for that challenge, and you know how to interact with people that were your peers previously that now have to respect you in that role. There's a few others that have moved in from a customer success manager. Now he's one of my managers. Had no pre-sales experience, but a great leader as far as someone who really has that emotional intelligence. And he's just, whenever I point him at something, listen to this podcast, go, check this out, he's all over it. So just making sure that you get curious people, and that that there's kind of a way of keeping a bit of their person. So it's not full boot camp where you just have to conform. I don't want people who just conform. You have to have an opinion. You have to have character. That's really essential in kind of rebuilding, whether they come in from inside or outside. I have a career path, and that I instituted, I think, the end of 2019. It goes through 5 levels. It's engineer. First 2 levels are engineer. Next 3 levels have the title architect. And it's different than how others might use the terms engineer, architect, but because we do work I didn't think of it in our relation to construction, because that's one of a big industry that we sell into. But afterwards I said, oh, there's actually a correlation. An associate sales solutions engineer, which they don't carry the title associate, but a level 1, you're looking at a wall, you're designing a wall. You eventually someone, that's the first thing you do. You build a wall, just a flat structure. Then someone says, well, you need some electrical and plumbing in there. So you're building that in. Then you're graduating to actually designing rooms and understanding what it is to make up 4 walls, or actually 6 walls, ceiling and floor. And then you realize there's a door. You walk out, and well, hey, there's a hallway, there's more rooms, there's a lot more to this. So eventually, as you're growing up to an architect, you're being more creative. Architects in industry are the creatives. Engineers apply and design, and construction does. That's more post-sale. So as you're an architect, you got to be creative, and now thinking about the whole ecosystem of other products that influence yours or that you interact with, so that you're bringing creative solutions. You're saying to the buyer, well, how do you need to live in this structure? How do you need to interact with it? What influences your creativity? Maybe having a window that faces an alley isn't great. So now we got to actually think about a condo and top floor in Miami. So that's kind of the career growth of being very narrow focused to expanding your view and your technical depth and kind of superiority. But not everyone is creative minded. When I was looking at whenever I promoted one of the SEs into the first time into principal solutions architect role, you look at this individual and it's like, yeah, that's someone who is a principal. They know more about this than I do. That's kind of one of the management things that you say. Do they know more about this than you do? And the answer is yes. So there's a whole lot to growing individuals, having that emotional intelligence, which I never thought that I did. But that's, I miss doing the individual, the selling. But I remember the last time we spoke, I said I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't want to deal with people's garbage and the politics. I'm still not enjoying the politics, but I'm really enjoying and it's not dealing with people's garbage. It's really fun and rewarding to be at this level.
I guess you shifted mentally. You thought of it as garbage, but as you
Yeah.
grow up, like it's not. I don't think it's garbage. It's everybody wants what they want, because if you care or if you don't care, it's garbage. If you do care, now it's something that's interesting.
Yeah.
Something we talked about earlier that I told you I wanted to bring up is burnout and mental health. Right now with this whole COVID, we're all stuck at home. Luckily, I have parents and brothers around me, and I have a good company that I work for. But if someone came up to you, how would you deal? How would you help your SEs, or how would you recommend the SEs to help themselves if you feel like they're going through burnout or they're having some anxiety issues or whatever it is?
I'm not the best at making people feel good. I hope that I don't make them feel bad, but and I know I'm not the best at managing my calendar, my day. I don't have kids. Yeah, I don't have anything better to do than to work. But the thing is, I love my job. But there are times, especially in Q1, as I was installing new managers, as I was having to hire a whole bunch of new headcount, a lot of other changes within the business as we're growing, and I felt for the first time in 5.5 years underwater, and where I just I'm like, I need a vacation, and I got out of it. That's where you just got to kind of delegate. You got to prioritize. So that's me individually. I'll work when I wake up to when I go to bed, but it's enjoyable. That's not the same case for everybody. And whenever I look at my calendars, I see them up in front of me, the whole team. There's a whole lot of back-to-backs. I try to avoid those. The SE owns their calendar. Wow, they're responsible for their calendar. I own their calendar to make sure that people don't, do things like that where it's 6 hours or 8 hours of straight meetings. It's fine to have a whole lot of that very briefly, and then it kind of comes down. You're not going to be an SE if you like a nice predictable career, but it's a lot more predictable than our sales counterparts. So that's the nice part of it. One of the things I had to do for an SE a couple of years ago, whenever we really started seeing that, me and my boss, that they were getting very anxious, and it was kind of coming out internally, thankfully not externally, force them on vacation. Say, take next week off. We'll get all of your deals, all of your calls covered. And that's, I'll cover them. We'll get our team, the leads, or whatever else. We'll get you covered. Go away. Take time off. Unplug. I don't want you answering the phone or anything. That's an extreme. And actually that's, let me ask each of you, where you work, is it a use it or lose it accrued time off, or do you have the responsible time off, whereas you don't accrue?
We accrue. I can accrue up to a year's worth of vacation. So I have 20 days. I can carry them all over to next year.
So 20 days, but yeah, not a year. Okay. But 20 days, and same with Benny?
Yeah, a little bit less, but same
So
type of
something
deal.
like that. Yeah.
Carried over, I think, like 5 days to the next year, but try to use the rest before that.
So a lot of Silicon Valley companies, and they do the RTO, responsible time off, where you're not accruing time. It's kind of, you can call it unlimited PTO, at manager's discretion, all that. What I'm seeing is it's different in EMEA, where there is accrued time off and a use it or lose it. They take their time off. They use it all if they, and they'll roll over some if they can't. In US, my US employees take a lot less time off. And that was actually a conversation in Presales collective chat, of, is that good thing or bad? It's like, they're getting a lot out of us. There's nothing, spurring us to say, I got to take that time off. So it kind of creeps up, and it's like, oh, end of year, I took 2 days off. And that's not a good thing. Every so often, I'll remind myself, and then I'll remind my team of, hey, consider when you're going to take time off. Like, don't tell me, hey, I need next week off. You got to start planning for it. And also because I got to run a business. So I need to be able to forecast and plan and for resources. But they a lot of times they forget about it. And that's where we really got, especially in the last year, really dig into that and to see how's that affecting their emotional well-being.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me personally, I carried like 3 weeks worth of time off from last year to this year, but I wanted to take them all when my wife gave birth.
Yeah.
And then I found out I get 12 weeks of paternity. So I'm like, okay,
so you didn't know about it?
Well, I found out about it, like my one of my colleagues, he like his wife gave birth like a few months before mine, and he took 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, you get time off. So I went to look, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll just add it on top of it at the end. But as I was telling my manager, like, hey man, I need to take 12 weeks off, his face went yellow. I'm like, all right, I'll just keep it at 12.
It's scary. If someone came to me, I'm like, all right, we'll do right by you. Yeah, there's a certain thing of, you got to kind of, I don't want to say you got to prove your worth. You kind of got to earn it as far as that respect from the company to you. But it's when you give respect, you get respect. And so far, it can always change. I'm aware of that, but I give a lot of respect to my team, and I can always do better. I always realize that of giving recognition is the thing where I always lack. I'm the guy that doesn't send birthday cards or give gifts or call people on big events. But that's something where I can't even expect any respect unless I give it.
I do have a quick question, if that's all right, just around the unlimited vacation piece a little bit, just because, so personally, I'm a big fan of the whole accruing piece, because I'm really bad at taking vacation as well. And yeah, it's needed as well. And kind of, to be honest with you, the whole idea of a forced vacation is kind of a cool concept as well, because like, oh wow, like I really have no pressure to have to feel anything, because I'm getting told not to feel it, like not to worry about things, which is kind of nice. But I could see though that at least for somebody like myself, the move to unlimited time off being something that probably would hurt me for that exact reason that you described, that idea of, like if you don't have a number that's kind of pushing you to take time off, or if you don't have a set number of days that that you can take off, so you take those days off, then you just won't take those days off. And so are there any best practices that you may have for people that are transitioning to that unlimited type of style to to still, I guess, maintain a good level of mental health, or still maintain the amount of time that they should be having off as per whatever they need, versus whatever they had before? Like, I guess, what would you recommend for those people and not cause too much friction between them and their organization?
I think I would say I don't have an answer, which, it's not something I haven't thought about, but it renews that anxiety in me that I'm not doing enough for my team. That, and it's good that, if I go out and ask other managers how are they handling it, but I would be surprised if anyone actually has an answer, because, since I joined Ignite, it's something that we just have had. So 6 years of unlimited PTO, and it's just, you take it when you need it. But as you said, for those who moved into that from something else, how do they handle it? And I think usually what I've seen, now reflecting on it, they just put their time in. It's, hey, I want to take this time off. But after about that first year, or even first few months of thinking like that, it probably gets lost. And they kind of just say, well, I'll take it off whenever I want. I like to think that the team, each individual likes and loves what they're doing, so it doesn't feel like work. And actually, the benefit of being an SE is that we're not, well, most of us aren't paid hourly. Whenever you get your work done, and as long as that work is positive and productive, doesn't matter if you're doing it at midnight, 2 a.m, or in the middle of the afternoon. What you do with that white space on your calendar is up to you. If you're using that to improve, to interact internally, interact with customers, or go and watch TV or take a nap, or do some gardening, that's up to you. But that's something that some additional messaging and renewal of that messaging to the team is something I think would be good.
So I moved from a company where I had to take my time off to a company where I can accrue up to 20 days. My problem was that I wasn't taking my vacation when I had to spend it. Like I would lose vacation days as a sales engineer. So it didn't really, now I'm better because now I can accrue, and well, I don't know, I guess I'll end up losing it anyways at some point.
Well, let me ask, was it before you had kids and then after kids, was there any influence of that having kids kind of triggers I need to plan that time off a little bit more?
Getting married.
Okay.
So here's my advice to all guys, guy SEs. I don't know about the women SEs because I don't have that experience. But for guy SEs, if you get married, generally speaking, they plan the vacation. So my wife plans my vacations, and then I have to take
Same
vacation time. So I know I'm generalizing, but that's how I've experienced it. Get married so you can take time off.
That could work pretty
I
well.
hope that's not the only reason you get married, though.
Fair.
I'm gonna chuckle on that one.
I suppose, like for somebody that is moving into that, like worst case scenario too, try to maintain the baseline that you had previously, at least mentally kind of maintain this idea that, all right, I used to have 15 days off, let's just say. I'm now moving into this unlimited time off model, which is supposed to be this amazing new thing, which is probably being sold to me as something that's way better than what I had before. So at the very least, they can't get mad at me for taking what I was taking off before, which I suppose could work. But yeah, I guess that whole unlimited, it's kind of like the whole like Google offering like cars and every amenity under the sun at their office, like super nice, super great, but it also keeps you at your office a little bit longer than you normally would.
Yeah, I'm pretty candid with candidates before they join us, and here's what the benefits are. And this is, HR sends the package of what to look at, but I say, here's the truth of it. Not that anything is lie, it's just here's the pros and the cons. It's, if you are a creature of habit and your family has a vacation at the beach this week every year, and that's just the way it is, well, just inform me, just like you would your current boss. But if you're not a creature of habit, things slip. My last actual day off, even though I was taking some calls, was sometime in October, November 2019. I took a day off it was after a conference down in Disney, and my wife joined me, and we went to Epcot that day. And so that, but I did a road trip in August. We got the last of the lower 48 knocked off the list of states visited. It was a rough one. It's different hotel every night, to spend about 20 minutes of scrubbing down and bringing our own sheets and everything else in during the kind of the peak of, or right before the second wave. It all worked out fine, but I was doing QBRs from Green Bay, Wisconsin. And, so that was still very much a working vacation, but it was a little bit of a vacation.
Wow.
But the thing is, do you love your job? Does it feel like work? But don't let it kind of creep up on you that you need to have that well-being.
Fair.
I ended up taking like once I figured out I can take 12 weeks off, I started taking every other Friday off instead of just taking a full week, shorten the week a little bit. It helped just a teensy-weensy bit in mental preparation. And I needed to help my wife because at that point she couldn't even put on her boots. And yes, in Canada we wear boots. She wears like large boots. We touched a lot on like how you work with your SEs and how you deal with that situation.
I'm assuming like leadership has a lot more to do than just working with SEs. I don't know if you can summarize it. I wanted to spend a big chunk of this, but we had an interesting conversation beforehand. Can you summarize what you actually do so that the engineers can be efficient? Like, what do you do as a manager or a leader that doesn't have to be touching the SEs actually?
I got to go and see if there's one of those 6-panel things of what so-and-so thinks an SE or SE leader is and what it actually is, those type of things. But because you could say most of it is either working within my team or fending off everyone who wants access to my team, and that's the majority of it. But no, it's every business is growing and well, actually not every business, I guess some are shrinking, but any business that is growing is you got to look at where do you need to be. And one of the things is how I'm looking at different tools on how I can scale the business, do some automation, optimization. So on, we respond to security questionnaires and RFIs, and obviously there's solutions out there. How can that integrate into our CRM? How can we ensure that we're getting the information that we need that feeds up into forecast, and externally making sure that sales leaders are actually looking at that information? Because there's, I don't ask my team to do many things within an opportunity in Salesforce, but I do have them plug in a status and their notes and one other field. And they got to keep that up to date, because when you're looking at, we use Gong, and there's Gong deal board, and they've released some stuff that's very helpful for SE leaders or SEs as well, to see it all the calls and emails and different opportunity fields, including yours, in one view. That's important for the sales leaders to see all that as well, to say, hey, this deal hasn't had any contact, and the SE says it's stalled, but the rep it's in commit for this month. There's something not right there. So let's dig into that. So as how we can help forecasting.
It sounds about right to me. I don't know.
It thankfully doesn't come up much. I was expecting it to happen a lot, but the deals that show stalled are constantly pushed out. So you don't see it from the data, but that's where I'm always looking at how can we automate, how can we get some of that. It's been in this stage for too long, so that it's not something that a human has to do, to mark some field or some dates. And there's solutions like Vivin that we're looking at for some of that communication over to product and optimization of our and even seeing what we're doing on our calendars and associating that. So I try to say how much can I get out by how little human interaction, aka automation and some of that AI or machine learning at least.
Yeah. When I first started as an SE, I felt like my manager's job was to help me be a better SE, but you're not just tied to one SE, or you are tied to the organization as a whole, and you have a lot more strategic things to do to get the entire SE organization up and running and working and coming up with processes, because maybe we didn't have the right processes, maybe we need to change something. And that, I feel like when we talk about management, I don't think it's mentioned enough. So I'm glad you brought, at least I know there's a lot more to your job than just what you just said or talking to SEs. So I'd love to have another conversation about what you actually do, that when you're not talking to anybody, what are you doing?
As soon as I can figure that out, I'll let you know, because I'm always talking to somebody. But yeah, I don't know why other leaders or sales ops keeps at, whenever we're talking about headcount. Oh, do your SE support channel? Yes. Do they support inside sales? Yes. Not just direct sales. Like, we support the entire business, every seller we support. Working with marketing, I'm saying, all right, let's see what your marketing calendar is. We don't do this well enough, but looking at that and seeing where do you need SE support. Usually it's reactive of, hey, can we get an SE for this event? And then kind of negotiating, because what do you get? Well, I would say rarely is marketing giving as much to us as we're giving to marketing, but that's fine. As long as they're not asking too much. So it's kind of like I was only half joking of, fending off other teams from trying to get to my resources, because we're a highly desired resource. One of the things that I have eyes on is, and I asked in another pre-sales collective ask, is who owns technical enablement for the field? There's sales enablement, but usually that's, processes like Medic and how, lead generation and working within the different systems, the business operation systems. Yes, they often own technical enablement, but you got to ask who knows the product and who is best at educating and informing customers of value. It's usually pre-sales. So one of the things is that that's not our job, and is sales enablement, but we can only have better relationships and better opportunities by enabling our sales counterparts who are having that first touch all the way out to sales development and business development. So that's something that I'm definitely looking at, and it's not like it's brand new news to some of the leaders that I have my eye on that.
The big thing I see with sales enablement or from the technical enablement perspective, also, they just talk about the features. Like, this is how you use this, but I've never heard of, like, why would the customer care about that, even in technical enablement? And as being an SE, that's part of technical enablement as well. At least that's how I feel. I don't know. What do you think about that specifically?
There's knowing what a product does and why it does it. But the question of the why does that matter? You got to know what you're selling into and what you're replacing or what their pains are driven by.
Yep.
And it might be compelling things like they had ransomware and they need to solve for that, or it might be we have a whole bunch of disparate file systems, and our sellers are not hired to be technical to really understand infrastructure. I'm nowhere near Ramsey, your depth in network infrastructure. We are cloud-based, SaaS-based infrastructure modernization platform.
Yep.
In the fact that we do it all, it's all hidden from you. We do all of it for you. But what we surface up to you is that file interaction, that unstructured data, and that compliance and governance aspect as well. So it's a big leap from this could be mess or this different way of doing it to a new way of doing it. So you have to not just understand the way we do it, but how are they doing it today, and why is it such a big leap sometimes to have to talk to these prospects.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It is time to move on. However, like, I have, I can talk about this for hours. Obviously, that's why I have a podcast. At some point, we have to cut it.
I'm not even halfway done with my beer.
Did you even drink your beer? I don't know. I didn't see you.
Yeah, it's about that big. Yeah.
Oh, you changed the cup. Okay, I thought you were drinking coffee like me because I have my coffee.
It's very thick like coffee. Yeah. It's
the opposite effect of coffee. All right, it's time to move on to the not so fire round. The same 4 questions we ask every guest, which we've asked you before.
I can't remember my answers.
Well,
actually, I remember one. I was probably pandering to you on one of them.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, you can feel free to pander again. I won't hold that against you. Benny, do you want to start us off?
Yes, sir. So what do you love about pre-sales or even just pre-sales leadership?
So pre-sales is the typical thing that you can just nerd out about whatever, and usually as long as it's remotely related to what you're selling, and still bring value to the customer and bring that different perspective to the customer. It's really that helping the customers. Before pre-sales, I was a sysadmin. The thing that I missed the most was taking those calls and being able to, when I hung up or when I hit send on the email, I knew I solved something. Pre-sales is not just solving problems. It's creating solutions and creating value beyond just fixing one little thing. So that is the thing that creates interest in it and creates challenge beyond just that technical fixing. As far as the pre-sales leader, I can't remember. Ramsey, was this on something you sent? I'll attribute it to you anyway.
Sure.
You're not remembered for what you do, but how you made people feel. Is that something that came in one of your emails? I can't remember, but.
Quote,
Benny writes my emails.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those.
It might have been. Yeah, it was one I read recently from somewhere. So if a listener says, "Hey, that was me," great, let me know. So it's the way I walk away from a situation of, okay, you did something bad, but let's see what we can learn from that. And they're not afraid to speak to me about that. Of like they're going to get yelled at. Apparently, I have a reputation within my company that I'm a bit intimidating, and those who they're afraid to come to me with a question. They're like, oh, he's going to say it's a stupid question. Once they talk to me, I'm like, there's no stupid question. I will spend hours with an SDR or a team of SDRs to make sure you understand and I'm able to develop you and come back to me. I will spend that time with you. But I will hold you accountable to do your job. So when a rep asks for an SE resource for an opportunity, I'm looking at what you're submitting in, and I'm holding you accountable that you've done at least the band qualification. We are not here to qualify leads. We're here to qualify the opportunity. You are there to qualify the lead. We'll tell you whether there's something that we can actually fundamentally do with it. But there's a lot of times where you're still asked, like, I don't know what to do with this. Ping me on Slack and we'll get you supported. It might be a one-off because you're new or you've never seen this thing before. You don't know what to do with this lead. You need us to come in on that discovery. We'll support you. But it's not just within my team, it's helping outside of my team. And I reflect on whether I can do what I'm doing in my current role at my current company if I were to up and leave somewhere else, because I wouldn't be the technical expert there the way I grew up as becoming a technical expert here. But I would still, spend a lot of time as much as possible becoming that technical expert so I can do my job as well as possible and understand how to be a better leader.
Okay, I disagree with you about no stupid questions. There are stupid questions. I mainly think that the stupid question is a question that's already been asked.
There's a lazy person.
Yeah.
Asking the question.
Yeah, like the question's already been asked and answered, and it's not like they didn't understand. They just came back a couple of days later and asked the same question. Now it's a stupid question.
Yeah, I had to make sure that I myself and my team did not respond in our product technical channel with a, let me Google that for you. I don't know if you've ever gone to that site that you pretty much type in a search, you paste that, and they click it, and then it types in. It's like, oh, but hey, you're getting results. Or even just searching within Slack. If there's specific things of FedRAMP or NIST, things that are very specific, just search for it and see what you get. Yeah. But I also understand that one, they might not understand the question. It might not the answer. They might not even understand the question that a customer brought to them. So it's always on us to make sure we understand why you're asking so that we can give you the best answer and enable you the most. And if that means that we have to be on the call with you, but do some extra legwork, especially you've been here for years.
Yeah. And the other thing you said is you don't know if you would move to another company that you'd be the technical expert and how that would affect you. I don't believe, I think it's for someone to know how to get the answer is better than to,
yeah.
They won't know, you won't know all the answers. At least in my line of work, I will not know the answers to everything because we support so many different products. And I still get questions from the same people, even though they don't know, they know I don't know the answers just because they know I will get it for them. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know if that helps you or not.
No, it does. It's just I like being Mr. Know-it-all, and that's the thing I had to fight. That was a conversation today. It's like, okay, we got some new team members. We have multiple Slack channels, and I tell the channel where people ask questions, I say SEs don't ask questions in that channel. We ask questions in our channel, our department channel. If we don't know, we have channels with product, with customer success, with professional services, with competitive intelligence, with sales enablement. I'm trying to think who else we might have, but ask them so that we are the ones answering over in the general Q&A, so that they also don't see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
As well.
So that's your customers' channels, or?
No, none of these are customers. These are all internal channels, but our customers being the sales reps or those who are, even support sometimes ask. It's a technical Q&A channel.
Okay.
The thing is, I read every single thing, even though I'm not responding. I'm that person that reads everything. By the end of the day, I want to know everything that's going on in every channel that I'm a member of. So I really have my pulse on what's going on. And I ask my team to kind of do the same. But
have you found that to be useful for you?
Yeah, because, well, at a certain point, I need to disconnect from being the one answering everything. And that was a challenge of like, right after I said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and step back and let's have you guys tell your teams to please be proactive and keep an eye on that channel. Because I think a lot of the team is just expecting me or even some of the managers who are the technical experts during their time to be the ones that answer. And right after I said that, I answered a question because I really wanted to get ahead of someone else who I was worried might answer outside of our team with something that might steer it in the wrong direction.
Okay.
So I have to fight myself with that of being the know-it-all, but to your question, it helps me to know what's going on, and just like you said, knowing who to go to, it's steering towards that way, because at a certain point, I'm not scalable. It's already at that point. And I have to hand that baton off to the team. That's something I have to fight myself of continuing to do.
Well, good luck with that. Let us know how that goes.
I mean, it's a great fight to fight. If I'm the know-it-all, but then I also have the ability to do something else and lead people.
Fair. I know this is not so far around, but it's just a quick little comment.
Really not so far.
It's just ice cold right now. Back to winter. Yeah, well, first of all, like Mike, I really love that idea about, I guess, just maintaining the prestige of your team or the prestige of knowledge on your team to the rest of your organization, just by, like you said, like not necessarily showing them what's inside the kimono or like how you're getting to the answers, but always having the answers on hand whenever required. That's super cool. But also, I do want to comment to you, Ramsey, as well, in that I think there is totally merit to that idea of being the technical expert in one place, then moving somewhere else where you know next to nothing. Some of those techniques that you may have picked up from your previous plays are certainly helpful. And I'm just speaking from that for somebody that like came in from the compliance, like supply chain compliance space and supply chain data management space into the subscription billing space. And there's so little in common between the two spaces themselves and even the software. However, the techniques that you use as a sales engineer, or rather that I used, even when I was completely out of my depth with respect to some of the more like nuanced financial billing scenarios that are being talked about, being able to kind of fall back on my, hey, you know what, great question, but like I'm going to like get this answer from this team and then get back to you on that, actually served me relatively well, despite me feeling like I had no place being in that call at all. So I think there's totally merit to that, but all the while too, I mean, definitely drives that that desire to fill that gap and want to know all those answers.
I want to know everything.
It's the imposter syndrome.
100%.
Yeah. I hate being an imposter.
Yeah.
Or feeling that syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard. Don't we always feel like that? There's always something we don't know. And yeah.
Well, even the imposter of like, why am I a guest of renown on 2 shows now? But
and for
I have
me,
something to say.
Why am I renowned?
Yeah, well, you're the avenue to bring all these guests to our ears.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now I'm pandering.
Makes me a little bit less of an imposter. I guess we'll do the rest as a 5-round succession.
All right.
What would you change about your current role?
Being less of the know-it-all, but that's not the role as it's defined to me. But thankfully, leadership has allowed me and my predecessor to define the role and define the team. Sometimes I have to fight those who say, oh, I expect it to work this way from where everywhere else I've worked, whether it's HR or sales leader that says they're expecting certain type of ratios or direct alignment. So no, if your company that you came from wasn't named Ignite and selling this type of product, then go ahead and sit in the back and watch for a while. But I'm also very looking forward multiple quarter, a year out, to say where are we looking to be and what do I need to think about and all those risks and how to mitigate those right now. So at least testing the waters and kind of playing around with what could work so that we are ready with when we need it to work. That didn't answer the question of what I change, because it was mostly saying I love the position that I'm in because I have the flexibility. The only things I would love is that, here's the thing is that the reps would ask for us even more. There's still a lot of opportunities I noticed that I think we're leaving money on the table because they're not getting the SE assigned at the right time or at all. So always, I'm always fighting to create that brand awareness of our team and kind of market our team internally, especially for the reps who came from places, and career paths where they didn't work with an SE, or they had to do it themselves, or the SE was a human help desk versus a partner. But we are really respected within our organization and by the top leadership, which is unfortunately hard to find elsewhere.
All right, so we're not doing it in a rapid fire succession. Follow-up question: how do you balance protecting your resources and not letting them go on random opportunities that may or may not be qualified, to getting those account managers to involve your SEs?
It's giving respect and getting respect. Sales wins. We are a support organization, so I understand that as well. So it's a negotiation. That's where the politics come in, but it's actually not a hard thing, because they all understand that we are highly desired and highly impactful resource. So that's why, as long as they respect that part of it, there's an ice cream truck that just parked right outside my house.
Do you want us to pause?
No, I'm good. So that's it's a negotiation at that point, and a respect for respect.
Have you ever heard of the Tim Ferriss show?
I have, but I have not listened.
He had an interview with Jamie Foxx, and halfway during the interview, Jamie Foxx says, "I'm hungry." And then they pause the recording, go eat, and come back. So I don't know, I just felt like Tim Ferriss for a second.
No, it's just playing. Well, thankfully the microphone on this is probably pretty good. You can't hear the music playing.
I can't hear it. All right, so, sorry, Benny, go ahead with question number 3.
All right. Yeah. I feel like I did actually have a follow-up to all your follow-ups as well, but I guess just in the spirit of it, I'll just keep on moving along. So you've already pandered to us, I think, not too long ago, so you probably don't have to do it again, but what are some books or tools or resources that you may recommend for those in pre-sales or even those moving into pre-sales leadership?
So I showed to earlier, well, the one I require for everyone on my team is the 6 habits. I know Ramsey, Chris Wade very well. He's been on the show about
17
120 times.
more than there are episodes. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But the other one for my leaders, but also the individual contributors who want an outside view looking in, is the SE Manager's Handbook by John Kerr. And so that's a required one, at least for any of my leaders. And then the Start With Why, Simon Sinek. And it's because I was reading it, I'm saying, how is this related to leadership? But it's, why do people follow? And that was excellent. But it's the little, there it is, the bullseye of what, how, why. I'm showing it to the camera on the video. It's always like, ask why. And don't be that annoying one of just keep responding why. But whenever I onboard an SE, I expect they're always going to start with what, and then they're going to show the how, and they might talk a little bit about the why as they're onboarding and ramping, until I start putting along with the customer and they start saying it, and they hear customers saying why it matters, and then they'll flip to why, what, how, and eventually I want them to drop off the how to save time and really have a stronger impact. That was probably the most impactful for me, as directing down to my SEs, but me as a leader.
For the John Kerr book, I would recommend anyone who's not even a leader, not even interested in being a leader, to read it, just so you understand what your bosses are going through or what they have to go through. So the most valuable person is someone who helps their boss do their job better. So if you want to be valued within your company, help your boss and know what they do.
Yep.
Also, sorry, speaking of things that are just highly valued, I remember that little follow-up I had, which is actually just maybe a plug for Ignite a little bit, which is that I think it's a really cool showcase of the culture, or just what you all stand for you to have the autonomy and authority, I guess, agency to do whatever you want in your leadership role, just as you provide that to your direct reports as well. I think it's just a very cool thing that flowed from the very top right through the organization.
I mean, it's built from a foundation of trust with my executives and leaders that we're doing it right. It could all crumble down if something is, someone can prove with data and everything else that we're just doing it wrong, or just if some sales leader says, no, I need this, and it's like, all right, we got to go in that direction. But until you can kind of prove it with data, I have that backing that we're doing it right, and therefore I've attained that trust that I can be a bit more autonomous, but still be in lockstep with the organization as we're growing and how we need to adjust and align differently.
Right, makes sense.
All right, last question of the not so fire round. Other than not being a know-it-all, what are you working on improving, whether it's professionally or personally?
Improving. It's a lifelong improvement of just being a human. uh, I am that lazy friend, lazy son, brother, everything else. So that's why I have Facebook. That's why I have LinkedIn. The one of the things professionally I have to do as a leader is recruiting. I was wondering, there's something that would get me to this point, is recruiting. And that's that lazy person of how can I, or what is inspiring me to now go and talk to people. And it's having to find candidates. And last cycle we had probably, 20 times more candidates than we typically do. I don't know, maybe it's even more. I can't do math, but this cycle, same thing. We typically would have just a single digit number of applicants. So it's grown dramatically, but the market is very competitive. And, it might be surprising, but no, a lot of people are hiring. So, we got to stay competitive. I got to be out there recruiting. It's not doing events. I love talking, as obviously I can just talk for hours, as you guys know. But I got to be able to work on that recruiting, on that networking. One of the things that I really need to figure out, and I'm participating in a few different places as are my managers, is diversity recruiting. We're just not getting applicants, which isn't because they're not out there, it's because we're not working hard enough to alter our approach to finding those candidates. And it's not that we're not open, it's just that we're not even to that point. So it's diversity of, not just diversity of, gender, race, it's diversity of education, of background, it's diversity of thought. We have some of that, but that's not the visual diversity. But there's definitely something where that is probably the most active thing I'm doing right now in the work life.
Okay, awesome. All right, final question of the day. If people want to reach out and apply to your jobs, I guess, or meet you personally, if they can, where would they do that?
LinkedIn, where the lazy people go. It's I had to go and figure out what my it's probably Michael R. Townsend.
We'll put a link in the show notes, make it easier for you.
Yeah. Now I would say if you're trying to sell me something, just or trying to help me generate leads, the amount of inbound that I get on that, it's like you're talking to the wrong person. But right. If you're here as someone who's looking to break into pre-sales, or already in pre-sales, or just wants to connect for whatever, just reach out to me and connect, and I'd love just to have conversations.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks, Michael. We can continue this conversation some other day. I think we'll do a marathon one day. Well, let's just talk for the entire day, and I think it'll be awesome.
You might get 5 minutes of good content out of it.
No, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm sure it'll be good. At least it'll be fun. Let's put it that way. At the minimum, it'll be fun.
Right.
We've alluded to it already. I think it's on show 187 that we're going to have you on.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, for coming on. This was great. Benny, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I concur. Definitely a great show. A wide gamut of topics covered. Everything from, SCs being successful in their roles, like how managers can come in to, essentially lead their teams to be the best. Mental health and the importance of maintaining strong mental health in these roles, especially during times of COVID, I'd imagine. A lot of cool stuff talked about. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked to Michael about like burnout and all that, and he's not a psychologist, so I'll preface that, but he had some good insight about how he dealt with it, which is interesting because everybody deals with it their own way. But I feel management has a lot to do with either causing burnout or helping SEs get out of burnout if they are able to. So.
100%. No, I think those definitely go hand in hand. And like a good leader, a good manager, being able to manage the emotions and just get almost like the workload of their team so that they're optimal and they're not burning out, and they're able to serve their customers best is probably all part of that role. Yep. Definitely a good point.
All right, it's a good place to end this show. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Benny, for being here on such short notice for the intro and outro, which we record at a separate time. I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody listening again. And Michael, thanks for coming on, even though you were nervous, which, don't let fear stop you, I guess.
Yeah, and couldn't tell on the show personally. I mean,
No, it was great. The show was great. All right, man. Let's call it a day. This is Ramsey for Always On Time Benny, signing off.